I think that most black people that end up becoming Republican, they're Republicans because the Democrats are so terrible. When he was in office, things were better. You have a person like Donald Trump, whom I may not agree with what he's saying, but he's keeping it real. What the Democrats are doing is they're handpicking their prospect Negro. Let us blackify that person. They have never put up a truly black candidate. If Kamala Harris or one of these idiots get in there, we could be looking at our last election.
Our founding fathers here in this country brought about the idea that you and I have within ourselves the God-given right and the ability to determine our own destiny. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-thought lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction.
Once upon a time in the not too distant past, President Joe Biden said, if you're black, you should know whether you're voting for me or not. And you ain't black if you vote for Trump. So here to talk about that and what's going on, how Trump's winning a larger percentage of the black vote than Republican candidates have done in the past couple decades, or even in history, is Turning Point contributor and former police officer Brandon Tatum. So Brandon, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thanks, Christian, for having me on.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming. So before we get into analyzing the black vote, got to get your take on Trump working the fryer at McDonald's over the weekend in Pennsylvania. What do you make of that, and how iconic is that picture at the drive-thru?
Well, I think it was interesting and relieving at the same time. I mean, it's interesting that Donald Trump would be at a McDonald's, right? I mean, I don't really like McDonald's myself. I wouldn't eat there because I think their food is probably bad for you. Yeah. But I do think it's relieving that Donald Trump is put himself in a position where he's a person of the people. Because although I may not eat McDonald's, there's a lot of people in America that eat McDonald's, and a lot of us grew up on McDonald's, especially in my generation. I'm 37 years old now. I mean, all we used to eat is Big Macs and get the toy and the nuggets. So I get it. It's an American staple. But Donald Trump decided to put himself in a position where he can be relatable. And I think that's the difference maker between him and other political candidates, even on the Republican ticket, is that Donald Trump is a person of the people. Yeah, although a portion of his attendance at McDonald's is staged, it has to be to a certain degree because he can't just show up at a random McDonald's. I mean, somebody there may want to take him out. Average Joe can't just drive through the drive-through without somehow being vetted by Secret Service. So we get it. This is what they do. But it does show, especially his communication with the people that work there, it does show how down to earth he is and how relatable he is. So I thought it was a great move by Donald Trump, a great campaign strategy. I thought he was very kind to Kamala Harris. I think it was her birthday or something. He said, happy birthday. And he also proved the point that she never worked at McDonald's, and also that he worked there longer than she, made her lie and said she worked there. So I think that Donald Trump got a win with that one.
Yeah, and showing his authenticity, he disproved hers and all of her lies about working there. But I got a question for you. So a few weeks ago, me and my buddies went out to see Matt Walsh's In My Racist movie, and afterwards we went out to eat at Cookout. So we roll up there in our truck, we get out, there's a lot of guys just hanging out around on a Friday night. Of course there is. And then we're walking out, there's a whole group of like 20, 25 of them, all about to go into Cookout. We were walking out. I'm wearing my MAGA hat, by the way. I expected that they wouldn't like it too much. They didn't have something to say. I kind of kept my head down just to get to the truck. And then before I could walk past them, they're all shouting at me. They weren't shouting, go Kamala. They were saying Trump 2024. And these are young black men, 20, 25 maybe, about the same age as me. Does Trump being persecuted by the Democrats and trying to be thrown into jail, does that resonate with young black men or even the black population? Or what's getting them to support Trump this time around?
Christian, that's a great question. I think more importantly than what Republicans are doing or what's happening to Trump is what the Democrat Party is not doing, the lack thereof. I think that most black people that end up becoming Republican, they're not Republican because of Republicans. They're Republicans because the Democrats are so terrible. And I think a lot of black men are experiencing a Democrat economy, and they're experiencing and watching them being gaslit before the entire world. And they're saying, look, let me just get this other guy a try. Because when he was in office, things were better. When he was in office, these things had happened. And now we've got, and mind you, they didn't vote for him in 2020. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't because I thought he did a good job, but it's because how bad the Democrats are doing. I felt like they leveraged their attention to the Democrat Party as usual, but they suck so bad. They're so terrible. They're so disingenuous. Then everybody saw how Joe Biden pretty much had a stroke on television, and he's not adequately running the country. And so therefore, with the inadequacies of the Democrat Party, it opens up the floodgates for people to say, you know what, let me give the Republican Party a try. Let me see what they're doing on that side. And I think Donald Trump is cooler, right? Let's keep it real, man. He's swaggy. He got shoes out. You know, even though they try to take him down, he still rises to the occasion. You know, they tried to kill him a couple times. He come out with blood hanging off his face, fight. That is subconsciously the passion and fervor of the American spirit. And subconsciously, a lot of people in America, especially young men, have that natural fervor. So when they see a man who's overcoming, a man who is a boss, a man who can walk in a room that's persevering, that's doing all these things that Trump is doing, that's relatable, that's hip, that's with the people, it draws them to a candidate like that. And we've never seen anybody like Donald Trump. So legitimately speaking, I think that's why a lot of minorities are saying, you know what, that dude is realer. That dude is more relatable. These people are fake.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. You mentioned the sneakers and everything. Trump has the relatable factor there. But a lot of the majority of the black population supported Obama overwhelmingly. I want to say it was close to 80, 90%, if I'm correct. What's the difference between Obama versus Trump? Everyone supported Obama then. They thought he was a great communicator. Even a lot of them thought he did a great job as president. So is it just the disingenuous factor that's flipped? They finally wake up to the lies and being gaslit? Or is there something else there? Because that's the hardest thing to do, is to prove lies.
Right. I think you're on track with this when you make mention of the comparison between Barack Obama and Donald Trump. The first thing is that I think Barack Obama, people voted for him because they had high expectations of what he may do and how he could change the community and how black people believed that they were going to flourish under a black president, allegedly. And I say allegedly because nowadays they count everybody's black. But Barack Obama, they had a lot of hopes. So they voted and they gave their support and they were let down. And that's when things started turning, because after you watch the first black president not address anything in Chicago, not address inner city violence, not address the education system, you know, people are crying about reparations. He didn't give no reparations. You saw him do everything he could for the LGBTQ community, nothing specifically for the black community. He didn't do anything for black people. He was a hope and a prayer that never came true. And so therefore, black people like myself are like, there's got to be something else out there. I never looked at the Republican Party. And then here comes Trump, right? Because people begin to get sick of the establishment politician who writes a script and tell you what they think you want to hear, and then they never really do anything. And so then you have a person like Donald Trump, whom everybody loved before he became a Republican, and you're saying, this dude I may not agree with what he's saying, but he's keeping it real.
Yeah.
And methodically over time, people begin to shift to that idea of saying, I'm sick of these politicians. We want somebody that's for the people.
And for the people, by the people, of the people, as Abraham Lincoln said. But let's flip it to Kamala this time. Kamala just came out the other day with a plan to help her win the young black men that vote this cycle. And she came out and said she was going to give every young black man who wanted to start a business, who was entrepreneurial, $20,000. You're a successful man. You're not just successful because you're black. You'd be successful if you're white or if you're a woman. It doesn't matter. What you've done is success. But does this make you feel, if you were to be given $20,000 just because you're young, you're black, and you're a man, does that make you feel disentitled that you weren't successful before? Or what does that make you feel as a young black man? And what do you think everyone else is seeing?
Well, look, if I was a dumb black man, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm going to overlook all the policy positions. I'm going to overlook the betterment of the country. I'm going to overlook the national deficit, and she's going to give me $20,000. Well, I'm not a dumb black man. I'm a smart man, so I realize that nothing in life is free, and that $20,000 is coming out of all them taxes I pay. So I'm essentially paying myself back. And just giving people $20,000 because you want to start a business don't mean that you're going to start a successful business. If these people were genuine and they really wanted to help entrepreneurs, they will help people that can show and prove that they can establish a business and have a business running successfully to a certain degree. And then you give them more to expand and grow their business. You don't just give somebody $20,000 to start a business. If the person don't have any business acumen, they don't even know how to do anything with business. They're just literally throwing $20,000 down the drain. And let me tell you this, you give an ignorant person who is not confident in finances $20,000, that money is literally going from the government through their hands to wealthy people because they're going to get taken advantage of. You got $20,000, somebody's going to sell you a hope and a prayer, and you're going to lose all your money to them. Somebody who's more business savvy. So I don't think that it's for a rational person. I don't think that's the reason for me to vote for anybody. But I do see that it is a tactic. A young person who had never done nothing with themselves, they're not a self-starter. They don't know how to go out and grind on their own. They sit on their couch and hope and pray that somebody drops some money in their lap, thinking that if I only had the money, I'll do something. That's not the way entrepreneurship works. That's not the way I work, other successful people work. What you do is you go out and get it now. And the things may come when they come, but you go get it now. You start your business now. You start working on, making profits now. You don't wait until somehow Kamala Harris want to throw you a $20,000. And we all know that's never going to happen though. That's the thing. She can say that all she wants, but that's going to have to be passed through Congress. And it is never going to have congressional approval that you just give, I don't know, every random person that want to start a business with no business plan, no nothing. They just no business name, no LLC. They just want to start a business and you're going to give them $20,000. It's a joke.
Yeah, she's all about equality. Doesn't sound very equal to me. But it's equity, I guess, whatever that means. But so she's throwing money at young black men. She's throwing pills at young black women. Her main argument to win young women, and even young black women, is abortion. Trying to get them more abortions and protect their reproductive rights. Is it that we know the history of Margaret Sanger? Her idea was to kill the black race and get them to have more abortions than any other race. That's what she wanted to do. Seth Gruber's new documentary is all about that, exposing it. But now all she's doing is to win their vote is telling them, go get an abortion. I'm going to protect your right to kill your baby. What would your message be to young black women who don't see that Kamala just wants them to kill their posterity?
Right. I just would tell anybody and do the math. The math ain't mathing. Okay. If you want black people to be successful, and I'm speaking for black people specifically, and then I can speak in general in a second, but if you want black people to be successful, how do we become successful? Obviously, we need population in numbers. We need enough people that when we go out and cast a vote, we make a difference. But if you're killing off the next several generations of children because you want to have orgasms without consequences, then what are we accomplishing? It's only a matter of time before illegal aliens and people from South America come into this country and dominate black Americans in number, and then they give them mass citizenship. Therefore, their numbers are much higher, and then black people are going to end up being as inconsequential as a voter as Chinese people. And when I say Chinese people, I'm not saying that they don't have value in voting, but they don't have enough numbers to make a significant difference. Black people, and I'll give you an example. I think Donald Trump won with like 8% of the black vote. You know how crazy that is? That's 92% of all black people, and Trump won with only 8% of them. Now, if the population numbers increase so much more for illegal aliens coming into our country, black people are going to be an even smaller margin. Therefore, they'll at some point be able to vote 100% Democrat, and the Republican will still win. That's the kind of America that they're getting set up for. And this perpetuation of grievance politics is what you don't want to get caught up in. If you notice, these people have been promising the same thing for the last 50, 60 years. We're going to eradicate racism. We're going to give you handouts. We're going to give you reparations. If they were going to do it, they've done it already. But they don't want to do these things. They want you to be in a perpetual state of fear and longing for them to actually accomplish what you've asked them to do. It's like being in an abusive relationship. you somehow think that man gonna love you today when he has shown no signs of loving you. He beats you, he neglects you, he gaslights you, and when you try to leave, what he do? He guilt you in the stand. You don't want to be in a domestic relationship with the Democrat Party. And generally speaking, to everybody else that's watching, just don't be deceived. Verify and check everything that you're being told from me, from you, from the news. If you hear something, check it and verify that it's true. Don't just believe me at face value. Do your own research. An informed person is an active person, a person that is effective. And so you want to be an active, effective, informed person.
And by supporting abortion and such democratic lies, they're destroying their own right to democracy, not saving democracy, as Kamala always says. But let's set the record straight a little bit here. Trump calls Kamala the chameleon, because in one room she's Indian, one room she's black, one room she might be a woman, one room she might identify as a man. Who knows anymore? Is Kamala black?
I mean, if you're talking about black, meaning that you're a descendant from the African continent, it's questionable. Candace Owens did a whole expose on the lack thereof of her connection to the African American or the African continent, and so I don't think under my, I would say, criteria, I wouldn't consider her to be a black woman. One is her, I would say, inconsistent past. Two would be her upbringing and identification with Black Americans, and those things make me feel like she's not genuinely a black person. What they do is they create a black image of a person and then they parade them out as black. So the woman have no real life experience being black in America, if you want to say that. Neither did Barack Obama. At least Barack Obama was a little more authentic, and then Barack Obama ended up marrying a black woman, and therefore he can hold the title of being a black man. But both of them cannot truly identify with the black experience in America. They're raised a certain way, and what the Democrats are doing is they're handpicking their prospect Negro, and they say, look, we can control this person. Let us blackify that person. We know we control this person. They come down a lineage of being a far left extremist and idiot that we know we can control, but we can pass them off as being a black person. And then we give them some credentials, we parade them out in front of the Negro, and then we laugh at them as we accept them without any repercussions, without any pushback. And it bothers me that we're so ignorantly following this emotional path. They have never put up a truly black candidate. When I say truly black candidate, meaning a person that has a black mama, a black dad, and grew up in America and had the black experience. And when I say black experience, I'm saying generically a black experience, right? Because there's black people that do really well. There's black people that are the poorest of the poor. But then there's a connective generic experience of being black in America. And it comes with culture and a lot of other things. Mm-hmm. They've never picked a person to have that genuine experience. AOC, a Latinx, Latino woman. These people are not really having the experience of a genuine person who grew up in America as a Latino. And that's why they're not leveraging the vote as much as they used to, because people are waking up to it. I don't know a person that really consider Kamala Harris to be black unless they're ignorant and they hate Trump enough that they want to vote for her. But she's, in my opinion, she's not genuinely a black woman.
And just by strolling on the stage in, say, Detroit, Michigan, with a new accent, doesn't make her black, doesn't make her Indian, doesn't make her Hispanic if she rolls around with a Hispanic accent. But you mentioned the cultural aspect of the black experience in America. We've seen a lot of cultural icons come out and endorse Trump. 50 Cent, Lil Pump, Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, these football players coming out and endorsing Trump. Even just this weekend, we saw AB and Le'Veon Bell at the Steelers game tailgating and registering voters to vote for Trump. What do you make of this, and how does this actually does this impact the black vote in any way? If so, how?
Yeah, I think it does. I think that, Christian, it does impact the black vote because a lot of times what young black men experience is that when they start to get curious about politics and they start to look into different things, they want to see people that look like them that they can identify with. Obviously, we know a lot of black people play football, and a lot of black people know exactly who Le'Veon Bell is and Brown. They know who both of those guys are. What's his name? I forget his name. Brown. What's Brown's first name?
Antonio.
Antonio
Yeah,
Brown. I don't know
AB.
why I couldn't think of his first name. But I actually played against Antonio Brown when I played at the University of Arizona in college, my last year. And I actually was a part of tackling him and he fumbled the ball. But anyway, so a lot of black people identify and they know these football players. They've watched them play. They've watched them win championships. I mean, obviously Le'Veon Bell and Brown was on the same team for the Steelers at one point. So when you see somebody that you grew up admiring and you think have some level of sense and you can identify with, and when you see them act in a particular way, it opens your mind up to say, well, wait a minute. I guess not all black people think this way. I guess what about Trump do they like? Let me listen more. And I think it does have a positive effect on young black people. And I think it tells another story of how it has become a lot more prevalent in expressing your support for Donald Trump. Let me not say prevalent. I think it's just a lot more acceptable because I'm telling you, Le'Veon Bell may have always liked Trump, but was he going to say anything? You know, all of these other black people that you see, Lil Pump and all these people, they probably liked Trump since 2016, but they weren't going to ever say anything because it wasn't cool enough to say anything. Now we see that the tide is turning to where now people are okay with expressing themselves wearing Trump gear. And black people saying, look, I support Trump. And I say it's not only people like me and Candace, but I think that Candace and I and others have had a huge impact in this because when being a conservative wasn't cool, we were conservative. When our parents and not necessarily my parents, but family members shun us, people I went to school with, went to church with, they were shunning us because it was so bizarrely out of reality for you to think you're going to vote for that man. We stuck through it and we made it cool. We made it swaggy to be conservative. We made it swaggy to be outside of the box. And I'm not saying it's just me and Candace, but I'm saying other black conservatives like us have really given other people the permission to say, hey, man, I'm tired of being quiet myself. They can do it. Why can't I do it? I like Trump too. You know, and then when he got shot, a lot of people were like, you know what? Screw this, man. I'm tired of holding back. I know a whole bunch of people that did that, black, white, and indifferent, that said, it's time now that I'm going to say something. I'm tired of being quiet about it. I'm going to show my support. And I'm telling you now, it's still not to where I would like it to be because I wear my Trump hat almost everywhere I go. And I'm going to wear it when I go to Washington this weekend. And people often come up to me more so than ever and say, I love the hat. Pilots, flight attendants, people in the airport, Uber drivers. I mean, they all, I just wish it was to the point where they're wearing their MAGA hat. They're showing their open support. But it is getting there.
Yeah, and these endorsements are definitely helping towards that. What you guys have been doing, like you said, I mean, don't be boastful at all, which you're not, but what you're doing is an understatement. So I appreciate what you're doing. But we saw that Trump also showed up at the Steelers game last night after going to McDonald's, after having a town hall in Lancaster, and then he showed up at the Steelers game, 9 o'clock at night? He showed up there and they flew back to Florida. Does Trump, what does it mean to football fans to see Trump up in a suite at their game, at their hometown game in Pittsburgh? What does that mean to football fans as a former football player yourself?
I just think it makes him more relatable, right? He's at the game. He's enjoying the American pastime. I mean, some people say baseball is. I think football is the American pastime. But, you know, he's enjoying just like everybody else. It humanizes him. And I think people like that. You know, these stuffy politicians that only show up to do campaign, kissing babies and shaking hands. Donald Trump is enjoying life like the rest of us, right? He's a normal person. He's at the suite. He's at the UFC fights. He's at NASCAR. He's at McDonald's. And I'll tell you another thing that impresses me about Donald Trump is how this late 70-year-old man is everywhere. I mean, the guy's literally going to 3 or 4 places, and it's not easy. He got to have a whole motorcade. He got to have Secret Service. I mean, it's a task to do what Donald Trump is doing, flying around on his airplane and you know, all this stuff that this man is doing, and he's older, and he's outpacing everybody. He's going to more campaign stops than Kamala Harris. He's doing appearances and events and podcasts I'm like, I don't know if I could keep up with Donald Trump, to be quite honest. And I'm a young man. It's honorable, and it gives me the courage to realize that if he can fight, I could fight. If he's still going and putting out his energy into it to the last drop, then what? How much more can I help? How much more should I be believing that this is important? And I'll say this as well. How serious do I believe he is? This is not a selfish thing that he's doing. Some people want to say, "Oh, he's a narcissist, so he want to do this to aggrandizement or whatever you want to call it." That's not what Donald Trump is doing. He's putting his health on the line. He's putting his family on the line. He's putting his life on the line because he must really believe that the country needs to improve, and the people that will lead the country are doing a terrible job. Donald Trump could have been retired. He said this in one of his debates. He could be sitting on a beach somewhere, not worried about none of this stuff. He got plenty of money, beautiful wife. Barron is growing up, young, handsome man. He can focus on Barron. He can focus on his grandchildren. He ain't got to be worried about us. Trump is good, no matter what the economy does. He got the FU money. But instead, he's saying, you know what? I want to dedicate my life, the latter part of my life, to doing what I can for this country. And I admire that in Donald Trump. And that's why he has my unwavering support in this election for sure.
And perhaps that can't stop, won't stop attitude of President Trump is the role model young men need in their lives. We just saw, I think it was this morning, Lara Trump went on the Breakfast Club to lay out her vision for her father-in-law and the RNC. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the Breakfast Club is one of the traditional black media outlets, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And we've never seen a Trump go on there before. We've seen a couple of candidates like Vivek and a couple other guys who have gone on there. Does this stand out to you at all? Is this notable? What do you make of it?
Well, I think it's I think maybe Don Jr. went on the Breakfast Club.
Okay.
I thought he did. Maybe
He
he
might
didn't.
have.
But what I will say is that I think they should have Donald Trump on a Breakfast Club, to be honest. But I also think that humanizing the Trump family is important as well, because some people have never heard of Laura Trump, right? I mean, in the black community, they only know Donald Trump and maybe his sons. They don't know his son's wife, and she have a significant position in the RNC. And for them to be able to see her, as beautiful as she is, as well-spoken, kind, mild-mannered, then they get a different perspective. Like, oh, I mean, Donald Trump is raising good kids, and their wives are good women. And they're not these radical racist weirdo people that they try to make them out to be. And I think watching Laura Trump on there, it humanized her to a certain degree. And she is very smart and intelligent. And she is a very confident woman. And all the women out there that's like Trump hate women and all this, and they got this whole feminist mindset. Here is an example of one of Trump's son's wives who's a very successful, smart, intelligent, confident woman. And it's it's a woman that other women can get behind if they so choose to, want to see an example of women flourishing in the Trump family and also in the Trump administration and in the Republican Party. So I think it was incredible, man. I'm going to do a video later about it. I have to watch it after we have our interview, but I think it's incredible. I think they should continue to have other Trump people be a part of the Breakfast Club, because it gives the opportunity for them to quash some of these narratives that they have. And I think Laura did a really good job based on the clips that I've seen.
Yeah, I think so too. And even him going to the barbershop in the Bronx with Lawrence Jones, I think going to Philly over the weekend in the barbershop, time and time again, like we're discussing now, it's all about humanizing Mr. President Trump. But before we close, you got to get your take on the polls versus the betting odds. We're seeing in the polls Trump is up a couple points, say 2 or 3 points, still within the margin of error. But the betting odds, where money's on the line, he's up 15, 16 points, especially after Kamala's Brett Baier interview. What's your message? You're working for Turning Point. All the Turning Point Action people are going out registering voters. You're about done registering voters now, especially in Pennsylvania, these swing states. Now it's time to get out the vote. What's your message to get out the vote? And do we worry about these polls, the betting odds? Does it make a difference?
No, I think we treat it like a football game. The score on the board is irrelevant. we got to go out and execute every play every time like we were trained to do. I don't care how far ahead Trump is. Trump could be leading by 50 points. Put the pedal to the metal and run up the score. We have to make it a no contest. And that's what I think people should the only polls you should look at is the results. You know what I'm saying? When Trump actually wins, what percentage did he win by? That's what I want to see. I think it can give you a little confidence in looking at the fact that you can be confident enough to know we do have a chance. But I don't want people to be so confident that they're complacent. Winning by 10, 15 points isn't enough. We got to run the score up on these communists and let the rest of the people know that you can't run on these communist principles anymore, these socialist principles. You can't run on taking the lives of the unborn. You can't run on gender pronouns and all this weird stuff that they're doing. You can't run on the anti-God theology. You can't run on that and think you're going to win in America ever again. So we have to set the example. And I will tell everybody, you put up or shut up. You either turn out the vote or shut your mouth and don't say nothing else about another election. I better never hear somebody that didn't show up to vote say anything to me about the presidential election or any other election. Shut up, or you show up to that poll and you put your best effort forward. And I'll tell people this as well. Don't wait till the last minute to vote. Vote early. If you have an opportunity to vote early, vote early. The best solution for me is to vote early or on election day or mail it in that order. The reason why you want to vote early is because if there's anything that happened to your ballot, there's a signature confusion, there's something that happened on election day. Just say you go on election day and you went to the wrong polling place and you haven't figured out which place that you should go to fill out your ballot. And you only have a little bit of time left. At least if you missed that opportunity that day, you can go again before the election. But if you're on election day, you only get one chance at it. You got a flat tire, somebody die in your family, something happens, you effed, and you're not going to be able to vote. And every single vote counts. So go and vote early. Me and my family are going to vote early. And then I'm going to go and check the registry and make sure that my vote counted. And if somehow it didn't, I'm calling people. I'm trying to figure out, what happened. And I think everybody should have that concept in the forefront of their mind. And then if you can't do it early, vote on election day. And if somehow you can't do it early and you're not going to make it on election day, mail that thing in. The last thing you want to do is do nothing. And you cannot be a procrastinator, which most people are procrastinating. Don't be a procrastinator. Be proactive, because this may be our last election if we don't show up. I put my life on it that if Kamala Harris or one of these idiots get in there, we could be looking at our last election. Because they're going to take over the Supreme Court and pack the court. They're going to try to get rid of the Electoral College. And if they somehow can get their fangs in, they're going to get their fangs in the House and Senate. If they have the presidency, House and Senate, and they maximize the Supreme Court, we ain't never going to have another election. And then what they're going to start doing is going down the path of putting away their political enemies. Now you're speaking hate speech. Now, if you support this candidate, red flag laws, you're a terrorist. They're going to go down a list of finding ways to alienate you from society. And if you don't think they can do it, they did it with COVID. They did it with the boosters. You got a vaccine passport. Now they're going to not let you go to the bank and all this. The banks are going to work with you. They can F you. And I think that the Democrats' plan is to do that over time. So you need to go out and vote. If we do it right, if we make it so overwhelming, they can't manipulate it. So get your butt out, get somebody else to go with you and go vote.
Yeah, and not voting is more than just a statement. It is a vote in and of itself. And I like to close on this final question here with every guest. If you could tell America or my generation, Gen Z, one thing not to give up, what would it be?
I would say don't give up your faith. Put your faith in God first. Every success that I've ever had in my life, every triumph I've been able to overcome has been because I kept God in the forefront. So all these things can happen, but one thing that's never going to part from you, that is a spiritual connection, is your relationship with God. And I think every young person should have a relationship with God. You ain't got to be super deep and spiritual. Just have a relationship. Pick your Bible up. Read your Bible. Build a relationship with God. Pray. Those things nobody can take from you. They could take your money. They could try to take your life. They could take your livelihood. They could take your girl, whatever you want to do, but they cannot take your connection with the Creator. So keep that in the forefront. That'll lead you and guide you in every other aspect of life. If you're questioning, what should I do about this and this and that and other? What does my future hold? Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and these other things will be added unto you. And so keep your trust in God. That's the most important thing you can ever do. Believe in yourself and always pursue excellence, and you'll be just fine.
In Matthew 6:33 right there, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. Perhaps not this election, but they could take this election. They can't take away your eternal salvation with the Savior. So great wisdom there, Brandon. Really appreciate you coming on the show, all your insight. It's been a great conversation.
Thank you, Christian. I appreciate it, man. God bless you.